What is color to you? Color is what brings ideas to life. Color is sharing emotions with the world. Color is what captures the moment. For us, color is a combination of precise calculations and well-defined algorithms, uncompromising design and engineering, relentlessly refining our methods, and spending countless hours to perfect our product. For us, that is color. Every detail counts. Our promise is to give you the most color-critical monitor ever, and to vibrantly bring your vision to life. With your color, the true color.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vicente Lockschmidt, and I am the Digital Marketing Manager for BenQ in Central and Eastern Europe. And it's my pleasure to welcome you today to today's Food Photography Essentials webinar with rka Babicka. We are at over 500 registrations for today's webinar, so I'm really very excited to welcome you all here today. Rka and I have been working on this for quite some time, and we're really excited for today. 2 points that I want to go over first. The first of which is that the webinar will be recorded. So in a follow-up email tomorrow, you will be receiving the recording of the webinar. The second of which is a present for all of the participants today, which is a 10% discount code for our BenQ AccuColor monitors. For those of you who don't know, BenQ works and produces 2 lines of monitors made for artists. This is the PD line, which is for professional designers, and the SW line, which is for photographers. Now, these monitors are really built from the ground up with artists in mind. Any of you that have worked before with photography or even design know that when you are taking a picture of something or you're working on a certain image, when you transfer from reality to the screen, there's often a bit of inconsistency. The colors seem off. The colors are not exactly that which you saw before. You put all this time into editing and into all these different settings on Adobe Lightroom or Photoshop, you print it out and it looks different. AccuColor was really built from the ground up to ensure that you have the utmost color accuracy with your monitors when you're working. As we know, this is something extremely important for artists when they're working. Beyond that, they come with a host of other different features, such as matte coating, allowing you to work during the daytime and not have to worry about reflections. Vertical positioning, allowing you to work with portraits, for example, if you like to work like that. And my personal favorite is a little hotkey puck, which is a separate remote control, allowing you to switch between different color modes on the fly, and really simplifying and streamlining your workflow. And in our webinars, we really have the great honor to have really people from all over the world and people with really very different profiles. No matter whether you're just starting with designer photography or you're someone who works with this professionally day in, day out, this is your bread and butter, your passion, there is a monitor within your budget range and in the size and the resolution that you're looking for. And the good news is that the same AccuColor technology is built in throughout all of the monitors. Beyond that, even they each come with their own individual calibration report, really assuring that you have the best color accuracy when you're working. And I'm getting one message from someone who's saying they don't hear anything. I hope the audio is functioning for everyone. But I'll check on that very soon with Robin. I believe we're getting a message from him. On to Sharika herself. Sharika has been using the SW line for now 3 years. And it's really a pleasure to have her here with us today. If you don't know Sharika's work, she's a professional food photographer from the Czech Republic. And Sharika really has this incredible gift, I would say, where the food she takes pictures of is very natural and very organic, and yet you feel all of the texture, all of the consistency. You really feel the texture of the image. Whether you're looking at something liquid like a soup, a dessert, or a main dish, everything looks delicious, everything looks so vibrant, and yet looks so organic and so natural. And that's definitely a lot of the things we're going to be touching on today with her, and we're really, really excited about that. Beyond that, oh, good. Thank you for letting us know that the audio is functioning. But I know that one person had an issue, and I'll be checking with that person shortly. Regarding the reviews, regarding what we're saying here about the monitors, I really encourage you to check in online yourself. Don't take our word for it just because we're telling you this. Each review that BenQ works with is always based upon transparency and honesty. We never give a script to our designers or photographers. We never tell them what to say. We always want their organic feedback, because that also feeds into how the monitors themselves are created and produced. So I really encourage you to look into that. On to Sharika. Sharika has worked with a host of different clients, including Bailey's, Emirates Airlines, as well as food magazines, and a host of other different clients, and has traveled all over the world. She really has a very, very, very cool lifestyle, I have to say, and really is a very traveled and incredible photographer. And it's really such a pleasure to have you here with us today. Final point I want to say is that here behind us, you can see the BenQ Integrated Systems Europe stand from last year. We're, of course, looking forward to seeing you all and welcoming you all personally and physically at future events and workshops just like this one, so that you can be as hands-on as possible. We're, however, thrilled at the reception we've gotten so far by working with all of you online. So with that, enough from me. I will now pass it on to Sharika.
Oh. Hello. Share. Okay. I hope everyone can hear me. Let me know, please let me know if you cannot hear me, yeah? Okay. Hi, okay, looks good. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you, Vicente, for the introduction. And first, let me thank BenQ for letting me create this webinar for you today. Let me just introduce myself. Like, I know Vicente already said, I think everything, but just to repeat it, my name is rka Babicka. I'm a food and travel photographer. Well, in the last 1 year, mostly food. I have not been really able to travel so much, but luckily food is still here with us. And I organized many workshops and online webinars before, but actually this is the first time I'm doing online webinars, so please bear with me. I'm a little bit nervous because it's so weird that I cannot see you. Normally when I do workshops, like people are there with me in a studio and we do everything hands-on, and it's a little bit more interactive. So for me, because I cannot see you, it's a different experience, but let's hope everything goes well. If there's any problem, if you cannot hear me or anything, please use the question part on the, there to just tell me you cannot hear me. And let me start my presentation today. Okay. Okay, so today I want to talk about food photography because that's my job, but also it's my really big passion. It's my biggest hobby. And this webinar is mainly aimed for beginners. So I want to talk about the basics of food photography and what do you need to know to create really nice food photos, because most of the photos I shoot is for my clients, and I shoot in studios. But I want to show you that you can create the same photos at home. So we will be talking about basic setups, what you have to do to create a basic photography setup at home, and how to understand and work with light. I will mention some basic rules for composition and for camera angles, and also will mention food styling, because food styling is a big part of photography, and I think you need to understand food styling too to show to create beautiful photos. And as I said, because I don't know who is here with me today, so just to start with and to get to know you a little bit better, can you reply? I will run a poll here, and can you tell me what is your level of photography? Are you a beginner? Are you a professional? Or are you just like enthusiast? Just tell me what is your level, so I know how to maybe where to focus. So I will run the poll now. I hope you can see that. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Let me show you. So we have a few professionals. Looks like mainly they're hobby photographers, also many beginners. So I hope there will be something interesting for each of you today. I mean, really, I will cover the basics, but maybe if you're a professional but you don't shoot food, there will be many new things for you anyway. So we will see. And one more, because I want to see how much you like food. So tell me, do you take pictures of your food? Because I remember when I was starting with photography, I would hardly ever eat hot food, because always I would have to take a photo of my food before. And we also know food photography is a big trend, and many people take photos of their food with their iPhones. or even with their cameras. So do you take photos of your food before you eat? So let me know. Wow. Someone never takes photos of their food. That's amazing. Good. Only for special dishes. Okay. Yeah. 21%. Okay. Good. All right. So let's see how we are doing. So looks like many of you take photos of food. Some of you only for of special dishes. 21% always. That's a good result. So I hope like you don't eat cold food all the time. All right then. So let's start. So first thing is I want to talk about light, because for me, let me just shortly explain what is my approach to food photography and like my idea, because you will find many different kind of photographers with many styles, and you know they're like photography is really, food photography is really popular, and some people only shoot dark photos, some people only shoot light photos, some people like really simple ones. And for me, I'm really inspired by light. Light is for me the biggest inspiration, and sometimes I just see beautiful light and I want to capture the light, because the light for me tells a story, and also light can make or really destroy a really nice photo. So I'm gonna start talking about light, because that's the most important part of any photography. And it doesn't have to be food photography. It can be portraits, or it can be landscape photography. So light is really the basic, the main component of photography. So let me start with light. So when we are talking about light, so today, because I want to show you how to create a photography setup at home. So today I will only cover working with natural light. So natural light, which means light coming from the sun. So it's the biggest advantage of natural light is that we all have access to this light. It's for free because it comes from the sun. The biggest disadvantage of natural light is that it's very, very unpredictable. So it changes all the time. You know, it depends on the time of the day. It depends on your window direction. Like there are so many things that affect the quality of natural light. So today we will be talking natural light. So imagine your window. So all the photos I will be showing today, I took with natural light. So there was no studio light, no strobes, nothing like that, only light from the sun. So when you're working with natural light, the first thing to do is always turn off all your lights, everything. If there is a lamp in the kitchen or any like other small lights, just turn everything off. If you let other lights shine together, they will compete and they will create different like colors, and like they will you know you will see light coming from different direction. We don't want that. We always want light coming from one direction. That's the most important thing. So for us it would be the window. So turn off all the other lights, and then I will show you a short video after this where I will show you how to modify light, how to modify natural light, because on a sunny day you will have really strong light, whereas like on a cloudy day the light will be quite soft and diffused. And this is really important for food photography. I mean, when I started with food photography, everyone was saying, oh, the soft light is the best light for food. Nowadays you can see it's really not like that. There's like no wrong or right, because there are trends in food photography as well. And like I've been seeing a lot of food with really harsh shadows and really strong light. So it's just important to learn for which situation, which light works best, and most importantly, how to control the light. And when we are talking about light, I already mentioned hard light and soft light. So you can see two pictures here on the left. This is something I would call more like hard light. So you can see there's a big difference between the shadows and the light areas in the photo. So hard light is usually, when I said, like, imagine you have a sunny day, beautiful sunny day, the sun is shining right through your window. And so this will create really, really dark, deep shadows with really strong edges. So you will see well-defined edges of the shadows. And this light is usually produced by a light source which is quite small or which is far away from your subject. And this light is not diffused and also is not reflected. On the right side of this photo, it's something I would call with soft light. So soft light is light which is diffused, and the shadows are quite soft and gradual, so you will not see the hard lines dividing the dark part and the light part. Also, it's a light produced by a large light source, and this light would be quite close to your subject. And now I will show you a video where I want to demonstrate how I work with light, because when you're working with light, what is really important is to learn to watch the light, to study the light. So play around, and you can diffuse the light, you can reflect the light. And so let me show you this video. I'll be pausing the video and I'll be saying what I'm doing. If you have any questions, you can ask them later at the end, but I will show you now. Okay. Okay, just to start with, so here you will see later the setup. I'm really playing with the light, so I'm like turning my background, my surface, to see how the shadow is, like the light is changing direction, you know, and like it's really important. Like this is what I do. So when you're learning about light, the best thing you can do is like take a subject, anything you want to shoot, put it on a surface, and like go around your flat or wherever you are shooting, and like watch what the light is doing, you know, study the shadow, study the light areas, like just see how it's changing, because this is really important to understand how the light is working. And like, so here this was quite a nice sunny day, so I got some direct sunshine through my window, and I will show you how you can modify the light, even if it looks.
Sharka, sorry, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I always forget to unmute myself. Sorry. Okay, so in this part, I'm trying to show you how to modify light, yeah? So as I mentioned before, I was shooting on like a sunny day, so there were no clouds. So the light was really like what I would call quite hard direct light. It was not diffused, because on a cloudy day, the light from the sun get diffused by the clouds, so you really get nice soft light. But on a sunny day like this, the light is quite hard, but you can still change the light. So what you can do to diffuse your light, you can use like a diffuser like this one. These are like a professional diffusers which you can buy at any photography shops, but also you can use just like a transparent sheer curtain, or you can use a parchment paper, you know, anything which is like transparent. White, it's important that it's white, because you don't want to change the color temperature of the light, but you can like diffuse the light with anything like that. And like now you will see what's happening when I put this. Okay, I'll pause here because what I'm doing, like maybe it's not really obvious from the video, but also I'm moving the diffuser like back and forth because the distance of the diffuser also affects the softness of the light. So the closer the diffuser is to your subject, the softer the light will be. So, you know, you can see it's really like you will learn that later, like the more you practice, the more you will understand this. But at the beginning, when you're just starting out, it's really important to play, just to experiment, just take a diffuser, you know, and move it back and forth, like try to lean it, and I just like watch what the light is doing, how is it changing. So then you will learn to understand, and then later on, you will not think about it anymore. You will just do it really like it will be like your other sense. Okay, here there is one trick because like I'll be showing you how I showed the photo of the two drinks at the beginning that I showed you before. And because I'm shooting with the first photo, I was shooting with hard light, you know, so I didn't diffuse the light. And I said it's really important to play with shadows because shadows really add dimension to your photo. So shadows are super important. I love shadows because they can create different effects and they can make your photo look really interesting. So here, because I was shooting like summer drinks, I was trying to create an atmosphere of summer. I was playing with these flowers and also like adding another element in the Okay, so this is the setup. So as I mentioned before, so when you're starting out, we are working with natural light. So place your table or any surface that you're gonna shoot on right next to a window, yeah? So this is what I did. And later I'll be talking about direction of light. So here what I'm doing, the light source, which is my window, is directly behind my subject. So it's behind the object that I'm shooting. So my camera is basically facing into the light. So this is what I would call backlight, and I will mention backlight later, even in more detail. And so this would be the basic setup. So it looks really simple. So there's just one window, and I placed all the elements of the photo on my on like some piece of fabric, and so there's like really nothing special I did about this one. And this would be the final photo. So this is something I would call hard light. So I played with the shadows in this photo. So you can see there are quite long shadows next to those glasses, and the top of the glasses, the surface, it gets really nice reflections, and also the flower in the background again creates like quite interesting shadows. And like, so for me this photo conveys like a summer mood, so it's really bright and shiny, and you should get the feeling that you're like sipping your drink on a sunny day. And in the next step I'll show you exactly the same photo shot with soft light. So I diffuse the light using one of the diffusers. So I remove most of the shadows so you can compare, and it's exactly the same setup. You know, I haven't changed anything else. I only diffuse the light. Okay, so this is the same photo. So again, the only difference in between this photo and the first one is the softness or the quality of the light. So this photo has quite soft light, so the shadows are barely visible. You cannot see anything. So you cannot even see the flower. The shadows cast by the shower are completely gone, and it's because I diffused the lights, I softened the light, so I reduced like many so there's like suddenly there's something missing for me, there's something missing in the photo. So back to this. So I hope now you can understand the difference between soft light and hard light. And let's move on. Actually, before we continue, I want to know which of these two photos do you prefer? Do you prefer the photo with the shot with the hard light or the photo shot with the soft light? So let's make another poll and tell me which one do you prefer? Yeah, most of you prefer the hard light, just like me. Interesting. Okay, that's a good result. Okay, let's see. So 70% prefer the hard light. Yeah, I'm with you completely. Because for me, they're both okay. They're both like nice photos, but the photo with the hard light is just like there is something. It's more dynamic. There's like something more interesting about this photo. And you can see 30%, like 1/3 of you prefer the soft light. So one thing is like there is no wrong or right. Like when you're shooting, photography is really, it's very subjective thing. So what one person likes, another person doesn't like, and it's okay because we are each different. We each have different style and different feelings. So you just need to understand the light and work with it. And like you should not really stress yourself about which one is better. Is it the hard light or the soft light? It's not about it. It's just about understanding it. And there are different situations where you use different light. So for conveying the feeling of summer, I think the hard light works much better. But imagine if this was more like a wintry drink, you know, it was some, I don't know, like mullet wine. So I would probably prefer the soft light. So it really, you have to think what is it that you're shooting and what do you want to say. So the light can really help you tell a story also. So it's not just about like the technical aspect of the photos, but it's also about storytelling. Okay, so here are just like few more examples of using hard light and soft light. So this again would be something I would call hard light. So on the picture on the left of the soup, this is really good example because if you watch the shadow cast by a plate, it's really, you know, the shadow is really well defined. It's sharp. It has a really sharp edge and it's quite dark. So this is exactly hard light. Normally with soft light, which would be in the next slide, here you can see like the shadows are really soft and they are quite gradual. So, you know, they're coming from light part to dark part, and the edges are not so sharp, they're not so well defined. And this kind of like, I mean, I personally prefer soft light because I started with food photography in London, and London has really, the weather in London is mostly cloudy. And when I started with food photography there, I was always complaining, oh, the light is so bad here, there's no light basically. But then I, later on, the more I learned about light and the more I learned about photography, I actually fell in love with the London light because it's really soft and it's just quite dramatic in a way. And so I prefer soft light. But more and more I see food photography shot with really hard light and like strong colors. So yeah, it really depends what you like, and you need to find your own style and then just stick with it. This is just another example, just to show you how light really changes a photo. So this is exactly the same photo, same setup. And again, the one on the left has hard light. So it's not diffuse, it was a sunny day. So sun shining directly through a window. So you have this like really like light parts with the streak of sunshine and like quite hard shadows. And on the right, you can see there are almost no shadows. So the photo is a little bit flat. It's not bad. Again, I'm sure some of you would prefer the soft light. I personally like, again, here, even though I said I like soft light in most occasions, like here, I would definitely vote for the hard light. Okay, so as I said, there's no wrong or right. Yeah, just remember that. Just learn to understand light and work with light and use it for your advantage. So decide where you want to diffuse light and when you actually want hard light. So for different situations, different light might work. Okay, so another important element of understanding light is a direction of light. And so in food photography, we talk about backlight and side light. There's also front light. I start with the front light. It's something I would say it's like no-go for food photography, because front light, you don't really shoot with front light. I cannot even imagine shooting with front light except like using flash on your camera. So that's one thing. When you're starting out, please turn off flash on your camera. Even if you're shooting with your smartphone, don't use flash. It makes the food looks really flat, really unappetizing, and it just doesn't work for food photography. Whereas like there's backlight and side light. So the photo of the drinks that I was showing you in the video, it's something I would call backlight. So which means my light source was behind my main subject. So my subject is placed between my camera and my light source. And the light is illuminating the subject from behind. I don't really work so much with backlight. I don't even know why, to be honest. And this is quite specific light and it doesn't work all the time. It's perfect for drinks, as I showed you before, because it really illuminates the drink. It creates a really interesting effect. And also it kind of like divide your background and your subject, because mostly when you shoot with backlight, the back part of your background will be really, really bright, whereas like the front part will be quite dark. So it's a special kind of lighting, and it's really good to explore that. It's good to learn to use backlight, but it doesn't work all the time. Whereas like side light is something we would go for 90% of time. So the side light are the two middle photos. One is the photo is lit directly from the right side, so you can see all the shadows are on the left. And then the second photo also is it would be side light, also like my light source, my window in this case, is like not exactly like 45-degree to the subject, but it's slightly behind, but it's still like illuminating the subject from the side. So again, like pay attention to the direction of your light, because that changes the mood of the photos. So here I created exactly the same photo. The only thing I changed here is the direction of the light. So on the left, you would have what I call side light. So there is like, so my window is on the left-hand side of the plate, whereas like on the right, it's a backlit photo. And you can see, I mentioned like the backlight doesn't really work for all occasions, because it has a special effect and it illuminates everything from the behind. So here in this case, it really creates like this quite ugly highlights on the surface of the soup, and you cannot even see the color of the soups. And also you can see in front of this plate, there's a really dark area, because it creates really, really deep dark shadow. So I would say like in this case, it doesn't really work. Like for me, there's like no-brainer. The side light is much better for this kind of photo. But again, for anything which is transparent or which has really interesting surface, like the backlight works really well. But it's something you need to understand and you need to explore and you need to experiment with. So just to show you, really to show you that there's like nothing like complicated about this. So this is my setup. It's very basic setup. So I placed a table or like a board right next to a window, and this is the side light. So see, I diffuse the light a little bit with a diffuser, and the light is hitting my subject, my soup, from the side, from the left. And here, this is the backlight photo. So I just, you know, turn my table to face in the opposite direction, so that now the light is coming from behind my subject. So it's hitting the soup from behind, and that's why I got such a dark shadows in front of the soup, and you know, the surface of the soup is like illuminated like this. But the light is still the same, the source is still the same, it's just the direction of the light that changed here. And here, another example of backlight, and this is like one of the examples when it really works. So especially when when we're talking about light and dark photos, backlight works really well for light photos because it illuminates the back of the you know, of the surface, and it kind of like divides the photo. So it's like disappearing into white, and also you can see the surface of these lamingtons is so well illuminated, and it's just like the photo looks so soft and like really airy. But one thing you really need to pay attention to when you're shooting with backlight is that oftentimes you need to use diffusers and reflectors. So again, you can see here I place a diffuser. This is shot in a studio, and there is really big window from ceiling to the floor, and it was a really sunny day, and so I had really bright sun shining through the window. So I put this large diffuser to soften the light because I didn't want like harsh, like I really wanted this photo to look like soft and airy. So I didn't want like hard dark shadows. So there is a diffuser on the left, like behind my subject, and I don't know if you can see there is like a white. I mean, it looks black because the bouncer or the reflector. You can use anything to reflect light. You can use a foam board like I'm using here, or you can use a white cardboard, you know, or you can use a white piece of fabric or like a paper, anything which is white or silver to bounce the light back. So you place your bouncer right opposite the light, and this way you will bounce some, like reflect some light back. And I'll show you why this is so important, because like here, you can see the same photo. The one on the left is shot with a reflector. So it's this one, is this setup, you know, so you can see the reflector right next to my camera. And what happens is, just watch the shadow in front of the tray. So the one with the reflector, there is a shadow, but it's really soft and it's not so dark. And the one on the right, also like the shadow in front of a tray, it's not so important. Okay, it's dark, but look inside the cake. So I wanted to slice the cake and show, you know, what the cake looks inside. But the photo on the right without using a reflector is really dark. Of course, we could fix this in post-processing, but in general, the photo looks more dark, more like heavy, and really like using the reflector, you know, soften the light, soften the shadows, and it creates really nice and light shadows. So that's really important thing to remember when you're using a backlight, to use reflectors and soften the light with diffusers. One more thing, this is not backlight. Just the reason I want to say that, like for a long time I thought like this would be something I call backlight, because when you look at the photo, it looks like the photo is illuminating my subject from behind, which it is. But imagine I turn this photo 45 degrees. You know, suddenly the light will be coming from the side, because I'm shooting overhead, I'm shooting top down. So the light is really hitting my subject from the side, because what is backlight? Backlight is really when you place your subject between your camera and your light source. So you're shooting into the light. So here, because my camera is positioned above the subject, I'm not shooting into the light. So the light is really hitting my subject from the side. So this is not something called backlight. Backlight is really only, like in this case, when your camera is facing your light source. Okay, let's talk about camera angles. So when you see food photos, you will often see 3 different angles. We're talking about top down, 45 degrees, and straight on. The top down, I'll start with that one because I think it's the most common one. Most photos you will see on social media will be shot from above. One thing is, it's a fashion. So photography, just like any other photography, is really affected by different fashion. And with because we shoot a lot with smartphones, and they tend to have really wide angle lenses. So when you try to shoot with your phone from like straight on or from 45 degrees, the perspective will really distort. So oftentimes when we use smartphones, we shoot from above because it's easy. There's no perspective, and also we don't have to worry about depth of field, which I don't want to complicate this subject now. The top-down angle also works for group shots. So anything which is really like, there are like many patterns, or there's a flat lay, which are very popular nowadays too. So top-down angle is really, really good. 45 degrees angle, it's we would say maybe the most natural way to look at photo, because in a way, when you sit at the table, this is the angle you look at your food. So this is how we are used to seeing food, from this angle, so 45 degrees. And there's also already some perspective. You can play with depth of field, so it's a really, really nice, very natural angle for food photography. The last angle would be straight on, and that's when you position your camera really in like an eye level, so you're shooting straight into your subject. And this angle works really well for any food which has height or which has layers, so like these pancakes or burger or like a sandwich. So that's something where you want to show the layers, or you want to show how tall the food is. And also you want to play with depth of field, so you can really blur out your background, so you can create nice atmosphere again in the photos. So different angles again work for different kind of photos, and you need to decide, like, this is something you will learn. The more you shoot, the more you will understand. Also, like, some people tend to shoot everything from top down. It's just because it's something they like, it's a part of their style, and it's okay. So just decide. Again, I wouldn't say there's a rule for when to shoot which angle, except when you're shooting the pancakes or food like that. That's like maybe one occasion where I would really go for straight on angle. Otherwise, it's really up to you. Just like feel it, feel what's best, what you like, what is your creative mood, what you want to do. So this is about, so we talk about light and about camera angles. Now I just want to quite briefly mention composition, because composition is really important. It doesn't matter if you're shooting a landscape photography, or if you're shooting a portrait photography, or if you're shooting food. There are certain rules which really help us to achieve harmony in photos, create visual balance. Like when you use composition rules, we try to focus on our hero subject and place all the other elements in kind of like a harmony to create the balance and create like a really pleasing photo. And I will just, like, there are so many rules for composition. So I will mention only 2 main rules that we use in food photography most often, and that's the rule of thirds is the first one. I think most of you you've already heard about this rule. It's like the most common composition rule for any photography. And this rule, let's say you divide your photo into 9 equal areas. So you have 2 vertical and 2 horizontal lines. You divide the photo into 9 areas, and then you get 4 intersection points. So this rule says you should don't try to always shoot with your subject like that in the middle. So that it just creates really like photo which is not so balanced, which is not so like aesthetically pleasing. So the rule is try to place your main subject, your hero subject, on one of the 4 intersection points or along the line. So here you can see that I was shooting pancakes, and instead of like placing the pancakes right in the middle, I pushed the pancakes a little bit to the left. So my pancakes are on the intersection of the 2 lines, and also the 2 champagne glasses kind of are more on the left, so they're not in the middle. So this is the basic rule. The problem with this rule is, for me, it's quite limiting. Imagine that you always shoot your food following this rule, so all your photos will look the same. They will always be food, placed on one of the intersection points or along the line. So it would be a little bit boring. So luckily, there's another rule, and that's a golden triangle rule. So this, for me, is a little bit more dynamic because it gives you more space for creativity. You can play around how you place your subject in the photo. So here you divide your frame into a series of triangles. So here you have 4 main triangles, but don't only watch the triangles, also watch the lines. So there's 1 main diagonal line and 2 short lines. So this rule says you should place your main hero subject on one of the intersecting points, and then place all the other subject on like along the short diagonal lines, so I place here, in this case, I am shooting a pie. So I place the pie like what in reality, I crop this photo later, so this is not really good example because you can say it's in the middle, the pie, but later on, actually, I knew that I would be cropping the photo. So then the pie was on one of the intersecting point, and then you can see on top, there is a plate with a slice of cake, and I put that on one of the diagonal line, and at the bottom, there is like a little sugar strainer. So again, that's on a diagonal line. So this rule really allows you to be more creative because you can play with placement of all the other elements. So you just also, sometimes it's called S-curve, because I don't know if you can see, but it kind of like the diagonal lines create an S shape. So you can place your subject creating like a letter S. So that's also really, so I think this is very creative, like you can play more than with the rule of thirds. Also, another important thing when you're talking about composition is use negative space. Don't always try to crowd the scene and always like fill up the space. Negative space is really elements on its own, and adding some negative space to your photos like draws your eyes to the hero subject. So let's start with the photo on the right of the plate. Like there is because the photo, the plate is really interesting on its own. There are so many colors, many elements. So I didn't want to distract the viewer with placing any other subject around the plate. So if you have really interesting food, interesting subject, don't always think you have to fill up your frame with other props or other elements. Just like let the food be the star there. Also, let's look at the photo in the middle of these carrot cupcakes. Quite often, because I shoot a lot for food magazines or like for magazines, and oftentimes they need to place a recipe in a photo, so I have to leave a space there for a recipe, you know. Or when you shoot for any magazine, they like to just place a caption or any kind of text, so that would be like a practical reason to leave negative space. But this photo on its own, it just like, it draws your eyes more into the cupcakes, because you know the photo is not crowded. So don't be afraid to use negative space, and don't overcrowd the scene. It's really important. And also, don't be afraid to get close. Oftentimes we try to, especially when you're starting out with food photography, people try to like fit everything within the frame. You don't really have to do that. Like this, it's grilled vegetable pie, and like, you know, you can see that vegetables are placed in like really interesting way. So what I wanted to show here was details of the pattern that we created with the vegetables. And so I got really close, because that's what is important. Like, I want you to look at the pie. I don't really need you to look around the photo, like there's like some cheese, okay, but really what is important for me was the pie. So get close. If your subject is really interesting, you know, there's like some interesting pattern or colors, just get close. You don't necessarily have to fit everything within the frame. And one important thing, I see this a lot. When people are starting out, for some reason, it's really difficult for them to hold the camera straight. So I see photos like on the left. When it's like a little bit tilted, it looks like the plate is sliding off a table. So please pay attention to this. Like, this really should not, like, it's not even artistic. Maybe this works with people when you're shooting people, like you can tilt your camera and create like interesting effect, but with food it doesn't work. Like, try to always level your camera and shoot like you know, level it so it's like the horizon is straight. Like, it should not be leaning left or right, like so the plate looks like really you have to catch your plate because it's falling off the table. So pay attention to this and try to avoid this common mistake. So here I covered like the basic elements of lighting and composition, and now I would like to talk a little bit about styling, because styling is a really big important part of food photography. And styling is something you really have to learn, and there is no other way. You have to practice, and the more you practice, the better you become. And really, because it's not straightforward, like oftentimes you see a photo and it's really beautiful and you think, oh wow, I can do the same, and it looks like it's pretty straightforward. Maybe it took 5 minutes, and then in fact it took 1 hour to create this photo, because really styling is a process of adding elements, moving things around and removing things. And I have a really nice example for you here. So here's a photo of, these are like a little pate tartlets. And it looks like pretty simple photo. Like, you think, okay, what is really difficult about this photo? But I will show you, I will take you through a process of how I created this photo. I cannot tell you exactly how long it took, but you will probably get the point, because on the left, this is where we started, and on the right is my final photo, and there was a long way from left to right. So what I often do when I'm shooting photo of food, I kind of like create a scene. I place all my like props that I want to use, and like it's like sketching when you're, you know, drawing and you make a sketch and then you're like adding some details and perfecting the picture. It's the same with food photography. So first I place all my elements on my of the subject, and then I start playing. It's like a really nice game. So this is where we started, and then we started dressing the like you know, making the food prettier. So we added some garnish on these pate pies, and started like moving, even like the, you know, moving the different garnish around. So like here I didn't like the sage leaf in the back, so we move it to the front, and then the photo looked a little bit empty. So I added back like this little plate with pomegranates seeds, and to the back I added another plate with one pie to just like fill the frame a little bit more. Then I moved the plate in a little bit more, and then like this was quite nice, but I was thinking you cannot really see what is it on the chopping board. So the pies are really nice, but I want to see inside. So then we took a slice off, but I didn't like the fork looks a little bit weird. You cannot really see the fork, like what is it there, like it just looks weird. So I moved the fork to the other side. But now the fork was, you can see the fork is really like pointing into the little blue plate with pomegranate seeds. So again, I moved the plate a little bit back, and yeah, I think that's the final photo. So you can see it took a lot of like moving things around, like adding different elements. So don't think you have to make your photo perfect like immediately. It never happens like that. Like it can happen, but most of the time it's really like about like, you know, fiddling with little things, with little details, adding elements, removing elements, and trying to find the perfect composition and the feel that you want to convey in your photo. So it's a process, and you have to go through that. And here, to really give you a taste of what it is like, I did a really interesting experiment for me, because I tried to, the photo on the left of the pancakes is a photo I took for a magazine, and I want to show you that you can create a very similar photo at home. Like you don't need to have a professional studio to create a photo like this. So I challenged myself to recreate a photo at home. I mean, it's not as pretty as the original photo for one reason, because this photo was styled by a food stylist. So most of the time when I shoot for a client, it's not just like a one-man show. It's not just me. There are like many other people on set who help to create a photo. So there would be a prop stylist who brings all the props, you know, the plates and the cups and everything. And there would be a food stylist. It's a person who cooks all the food, and they make the food look really pretty. So I don't think my food stylist would be happy. They would not really be proud of me for my styling skills, but I did my best. Also, I didn't have raspberries at home, and the raspberries in the photo on the left are really beautiful, because like they match the bed sheets, and it's just like really like, you know, the pink color is so inviting. So I only had blueberries, and I only had the pomegranate seed, but I did my best. So the styling part is something I wouldn't normally have to do. In the video, you will see even the styling part, just to get an idea, because again, it's a process. But normally it's something I really wouldn't have to worry about. I would get a beautiful style plate, and I would only worry about my composition and light and other elements, but I don't really have to fiddle with the food, because it's something that a food stylist does for me. So now let me show you a video, and I will be stopping through the video, and again, like I will explain what was going on, what I was doing, but just to give you an idea what it takes. And also, like, the main point is like you can do this at home. Like I was just in my bedroom, and I didn't really use any special effects or tools to create this photo. So let's start here. I'll stop. Oops. Okay. Yeah, I was too fast. But you could see there were, I don't know if you noticed, but there were apples at the beginning. What I oftentimes do, because some food tends to die really quickly. So especially when you're shooting ice cream, or when you're shooting food, or even you're shooting fresh vegetables like fresh lettuce, they wilt, they die in the food. Like by the time you get everything perfect, you get your composition, you get your light, the food is dead, and you have to start all over again. So what I oftentimes do, and we use like stand-in, so we put something different than the food, and I create a composition and the whole setup with something else. So in this case, I use two apples stacked on top of each other, just to kind of like replicate the stack of pancakes. And I tried to get the composition right, which I kind of like got, but then you can see, you will see that there was a lot more fiddling, and like I was moving the pillows, and I was moving the basket and everything, because I really wanted to, and that was really difficult part for me, because I wanted to recreate the photo, try to get the same angle, and like, you know, and that was quite difficult really to achieve exactly, to kind of like copy my own photo, even though like it's a photo that I shot before. To shoot exactly the same photo again is almost impossible. So it took a long time, and you will see what was. Okay, so you could see before, you know, I was moving everything. I was moving the pillows behind. I was moving the plate. I tried to level the plate because it was like a little bit like tilted, and so I was really trying to. And now you will see, like, every time I move something, I take a photo and I check the photo, and okay, I don't like it, so I go back and I change something. So it's really a process, as I said before. Yeah, so here I finally got to, so the composition was right. So that's what I wanted. I like the position of the pillow behind. I like the position of the plate. The plate was straight on. There was nothing was like tilted. So I was pretty much happy. The only thing I didn't like was the teacup, because the teacup, as you can see, it's a little bit too tall. It's actually taller than the stack of pancakes. So then I started replacing the teacup with different ones. Yeah, and this is it. So this will be my like final setup before I start styling the food. So I'm happy with everything. The teacup, like, I mean, this mug I chose is because like it's a bit smaller. It's not as tall as the original one. Also, I really like the pink top, which was matching the pink of the pillows behind, and also the pink napkin that I use under the plate. So I was really happy with this. Like, I was happy with the colors, with the position of all the elements. So now is the time to start styling the food. And again, as I said before, this is something I wouldn't have to do. At this point, normally, during a photo shoot, a stylist would bring a plate with already styled food, and everything would be ready. And I would be just worrying about my light and other things, but not about the food. But I'll show you what I did. I tried my best to style the pancake. Okay, so you could see, like, again, like I took many photos of the pancakes because like they started like falling off the plate. So then I was like adding more blueberries, or I mean, this is something we would normally do too on a photo shoot. Even if a food stylist brings already styled food, then like when we start shooting, you know, the food looks a little bit different when you look through your camera. So when a food stylist is preparing the food, they look from a certain angle, but then maybe when you start shooting, we choose a little bit different angle, so suddenly it looks different. So then a food stylist comes and they start moving you know, the elements, like the garnish or something, and like the food again would be really like perfected right on the scene, like on set. So that's what I was doing too. And now, like, I was pretty much happy with my stack of pancakes and everything, and what I was not really happy with was the light, because there is a window on the right hand side of on the bed, and it was really like too bright, so the pillows at the back were too bright, and I didn't like that, so I closed a curtain there. It's just like white transparent sheer curtain, so it looked perfectly as a diffuser. So I just closed the curtain to soften the lights a little bit and to reduce the harsh light there. And okay, I'll stop here too. Also because the light was coming, like the bed is quite far from the window, so and this room is not super well lit. The light is not really ideal in my room because the light is reflected from a opposite building. So the room, it doesn't look like that, but it's quite dark, and so the right side of the pancake was really bright and the left side was really dark. So I had to use a silver reflector to soften the shadows, to bounce some light back. So here I'm playing with a with the reflector, and I'm trying to illuminate the left side of the pancakes to bring more light there. And okay, so this was my final photo before I started adding syrup. So when you're like shooting something where you want to capture like a dripping syrup or anything like this, you have to make sure everything is perfect, because then like you don't really have much time. So here I was sure like everything is fine. I was happy with my composition, with the light, with everything. So then I just started pouring a syrup, because that's like the final touch of the photo. Okay, let's get back. So this is it. This was the whole process of shooting these pancakes, and you can see I didn't really achieve exactly the same photo as the original one, which is almost impossible, but I think I did really good job considering, I was just shooting at home. I really didn't have any, you see, I was just using natural light from a window, and that's what it takes. You really need to play with light and find the right composition and style the food, and you can do this at home. So, but you can see it's a process. You have to play with light, you have to move all the elements around, so it doesn't happen instantly. I think this took me almost 2 hours, but it's also because I was trying to capture a video of this. But yeah, it was really long process, and I don't think I want to copy my own photos ever again. So let's talk about styling now. So I mentioned a little bit before during all these videos and the photos before, but styling is quite important. As I said before, it's like I'm not a food stylist, so I'm not really a specialist in food styling, but then there are like few tricks and tips that you can do, everyone can do, and it really helps to elevate the photo, elevate the food from like really like boring into something interesting. One of the first one was the sauce dripping. Like that's what I was doing with my pancakes. So the pancakes looked really nice, but then I look at this photo. The one on the left is just before I started pouring a syrup. One on the right is already with the maple syrup, and the maple syrup drips, first like they really catch nice light, so there are some highlights, they add color, and also like it creates a sense of movement. So this really makes photo really interesting. But you can also capture movement with like you can create a pouring shot, so you can start like pouring tea or any drink. So this is really interesting element to add into your photos. Or so if you're shooting eggs, show a runny egg yolk if it's a runny egg yolk. So same photo, and one with showing egg yolk, one not showing the egg yolk. I think the one showing the egg yolk is much more interesting because again, it creates like it adds another dimension, another element is there. Another styling tip, very important one, is to create layers. So layers are super important. So the photo on the left, there, like you probably couldn't tell, but there are like 4 or 5 different layers. So first, like the basic layer is the backdrop. So there is like a surface. Then I put a fabric, like a napkin. The third layer would be a chopping board, and then there is a food on top. So creating layers, again, like it adds more dimension into your photos, so the photos are more interesting, they're more like aesthetically pleasing. But also you can create layers when you shoot from overhead, like the photo on the right. You can see again there is a surface, then there is a cooling rack, then there is a parchment paper, and on top of the parchment paper is a cake. So there are like 4 different layers. The napkin adds another layer. So layering really helps to, so when you have boring food or you don't know what to do, like the photo looks a little bit like empty or dead, just try to add more layers. You know, you can add like a napkin here or like a fork or anything. So you just create layers. But also you can create layers with garnish. So you can see here, like it's exactly the same soup. On the left, the soup was perfect. It's just like looked boring, really boring. So we added some garnish on top. So here I was shooting green pea soup. It was really nice, springy green pea soup and soup, sorry. And so we added on top, like a food stylist added some garnish. So they added like fresh pea shoots and some like sliced chili peppers, and also like some edible flowers. This is really important. One thing I really want to mention, and I see this a lot too, with some people, when they want to make their photos look more interesting, they just add flowers. I'm not against flowers, I love flowers, but please, when you add flowers into your photos, make sure they're edible. You know, these flowers are really, we bought these flowers at a grocery store. They are edible flowers. There are many kind of edible flowers, but don't go outside, just you know, pick a flower and stick it in the middle of your food. It's really important that it should make sense. Always, any garnish you add, like especially when I shoot for a magazine, like when we create recipes, anything we add in the photo has to be in the recipe. So I cannot just add like a rose because rose looks beautiful, because like the rose doesn't should not be there. So anything I put in the photo has to be in the recipe, so it has to make sense. So there is a slice of lime because the lime is also in the soup. You know, there are green pea shoots. So be careful what you add. When if it's a garnish, the garnish should make sense with the food that you're shooting. With sweet food, you can do the same. A sprinkling of sugar is really beautiful. It can elevate your photo. So again, here is the same photo of cupcakes. And on the right, we just sprinkled the cupcakes with a little bit of powdered sugar. And you can see the powdered sugar is like, you know, some of it fell even on the table, and that like suddenly the surface is much more interesting, because on the left it's flat, it's a little bit boring. And then like just a little bit of sugar like really adds another element and dimension, and the food looks kind of more edible instantly. And here is another example. This is exactly the same cheesecake. So it's a blueberry cheesecake, and it was delicious, but it just looked a little bit boring, a little bit empty. So, and we just added some fresh blueberries on top, a little bit of flowers. Again, these flowers are edible flowers, and sprinkling of sugar. And you can see just a little bit, like, you know, a little bit of garnish can really elevate your photo and completely change the whole vibe of the photo. So play with garnish, play with like you know, different layers. So the layers, you don't have to create layers only with props, but you can also create layers using food and garnishing. So that's really important food styling trick when you're starting out and you know the food doesn't look good. So just add fresh herbs. Fresh herbs work really well. I don't know, you're shooting like some curry, like brown sauce, which looks like just not really appetizing. Like adding a little bit of fresh herbs like can help so much to make the food looks more appetizing. Then also look for texture. You don't always have to use a lot of props. Like a lot of time, you know, these are quite simple photos, and this is like something I really like. I'm more about simple styling, simple. No, I don't prefer using too many props. I like the food. I like to let the food be the star. So, you know, just using really interesting texture can elevate the food and can make it look so interesting, because it's like painting, you know, where you're playing with colors, you are playing with shadows. Also here it's the light, because it's really dramatic light, so I didn't diffuse the light. I'm quite far from a window here, so the shadows are really deep, and I didn't use reflector. And same like the blueberry pie, like the blueberry pie was just beautiful on its own, and it didn't really need much to so I just put it on really nice surface, and I showed it as it was. And so getting close, using texture, interesting colors can just make beautiful photo, and you don't need to, you know, be a super food stylist or add too many props or anything else. So then I mentioned props. Props are really important. So you can use all sort of props. When you're starting out, I had this like crazy collection of props at home, and I was almost running out of space, because there was too many. I was going to vintage stores, you know, thrift stores. I would buy like all vintage tableware, like plates or silverware, anything. Like it can really make an interesting photo. It's important, like using nice plates, using nice cutlery, using nice linens. It can really help with the photo, and also it really creates a mood in your photo. So look for interesting plates and bowls, like especially handmade ceramic. There are so many amazing artists nowadays who make handmade ceramics, and they're just beautiful. You can put quite like boring soup in a beautiful bowl, and suddenly it looks just beautiful. So props are really important, but be careful when using props. Don't try necessarily use too many props, because they can take attention away from food, and food should be the main element. It should be the main focus in your photo, and it should complement your food, not take attention away. So neutral colors work really well. And also, like, the kind of props you use is really important, because it can tell a story. So here you can see again, like, I'm coming back to my lamingtons from before, and this is exactly the same food, just use different props. And you can see the photo on the left. I kind of tried to recreate a feeling of like a process shot. So we are preparing the lamingtons. So the lamingtons, normally it's like just like a little it's a sponge. Basically, it's like a sponge cake, which you cover in chocolate sauce, and then you cover them with the shredded coconut. So I put the lamingtons on a cooling rack, and then I added a cup with the chocolate sauce and a little plate with shredded coconut. So you get a feeling it's a process shot. We are still like finishing the cake here. Whereas on the right, it's out in a different way. It's exactly the same cake, but it's a finished product. So here again, I was trying to achieve a feeling of like afternoon tea. So I added a little cup of coffee. I added a jar with jam, because lamingtons are like, either you can like already like fill them with jam, or you can eat the jam on the side. So same food, just different props, and there are two completely different photos with different feel, with different story. So think about it when you're choosing props. Think always first, what do you want to say? What do you want to show? What is the story behind your photo? You know, and then use the props to support the story, to not to take attention away. Don't use props just because you have a beautiful bowl and you want to use it. You know, it should always make sense. I mean, at least that's how I approach my photos when I'm styling and like creating the composition. So here, just to also demonstrate the use of props, and I said like with props you can create different mood. And so here is again a photo of my soup, and on the left I just use, basically you can see everything is the same. The light is coming from the same side, is the same light, and I even use exactly the same prop. So I use a bowl, I use a little plate with crackers, and a little bowl with a green peas, and I just change the background. So I use a dark surface and I use a dark napkin, and immediately you can see the photo has completely different feeling. So the soup on the left for me is more like a springy or summery soup, whereas the one on the right, it looks like the photo is dark. So I think it's a little bit more like a wintry, maybe, you know, you feel more warm. And let's see, I want to see, because nowadays you can see some people really love dark photos and some people love bright photos. I'm not on either side. For me, it really depends what I'm shooting. But let's see if there is if you guys have any preference. So I would love to know, which photo do you prefer, if you prefer the light photo or the dark photo. So let's do another poll and tell me which photo do you like. Wow. Wow, it's 50-50. Okay. I don't think we have a winner here. Seriously, 50-50. Oh, yeah. Back to 50-50. Dark. Dark is winning. This is like Brexit. Oh, it looks like the dark is winning by 1%. Okay, that's it, guys. So, yeah, it's really 50-50. See? There's no wrong or right. So every person has a different style, you know, different aesthetic feeling. And so when you're shooting, don't worry too much about what other people think about it. When you're starting out and you show your photo to your husband or to your friend and they say, oh, I don't like this. Well, don't get, you know, discouraged by this, because you can see here it's 50-50. So we all have our preferences, we all have different aesthetic feelings, and one person can like something, other person doesn't like it. And so you know, this is art, so it's very subjective. So this was interesting. Okay, so we don't have a dark side or light side here, so both. And just to show you really what I was saying before, there is nothing, there are no big changes between how I shot this photo. So it's exactly the same setup. So I had, again, my table set right next to a window. The light was coming from the left side, hitting the soup from the left. And then with the light photo, actually I used a reflector to soften the shadow a little bit, because I really wanted to create very light and bright photos. So I only added a reflector on the right side to soften the shadows, to fill in the light a little bit more. Whereas with the dark photo, I actually blocked the light a little bit from behind just to darken it, but in general, it's the same photo, really. The light is hitting the plate from the same side, and I really see camera is positioned directly above the photo, and I just changed the background, the surface that I was shooting on. So you can completely create different atmosphere just by choosing different props, different colors. So colors are really important too in photos. So again, think about what you want to say, what is the feeling you want to convey with your photos, and use the props accordingly. So it's important, this is one thing I just want to mention, that when you're planning your food shoots, think before, you know, and don't be afraid to look for ideas. You know, there's like Instagram and Pinterest, they're full of ideas, full of inspiration. So you can create a Pinterest board. I do that a lot when I'm preparing a photo shoot. We create a Pinterest board, like a mood board, to kind of like get the mood of the photos we want to create. And also don't be afraid to find inspiration, especially when you're starting out. It's you know, nobody is born with their own style. We have to work on your own style, and we have to find it. And like the only way to find your own style is to practice photography. So the more you shoot, the more you will improve. And honestly, I think that practice beats talent 100% of the time. So when I was starting with photography, I would wake up every day, I would cook food, and I would shoot food all day long, like every single day. It was almost crazy. And that's how you learn, that's how you improve. And also don't be afraid to kind of copy somebody else's photos. I don't want to say here just copy somebody else's work, but to learn and to improve, it's really important. So I was trying to copy my own photo, which was really hard. But what I'm saying here, like, find photographers that you like, that inspire you, and create maybe like a Pinterest board with photos that you like, and try to recreate them. And when you do this, like, it's important to study your photo. So look at the photo and ask yourself, what do you like about the photo? Where is the light coming from? What are the props that they use? What are the colors of the, what you know, what kind of composition, like what is interesting? And by doing this and trying to recreate the same feeling, you will learn a lot. And along the way, you will create your own style. So don't think that things happen instantly. You know, it's a process, and like you really have to learn, and you have to practice, and you have to make mistakes, and it's fine. It's absolutely fine. We are not born perfect. So just never stop learning. That's I think really important. So to finish with today, I just want to show you a little bit how I edit photos in Lightroom. And so here I will be showing you how I edited the photo on the left and I got to the photo on the right. And one thing I want to mention, because this workshop I'm doing in collaboration with BenQ, and I really want to thank BenQ again for organizing this workshop with me. As Vicente mentioned at the beginning, I've been using BenQ monitors for I think about 3 years, and I really love this monitor. And this is just my honest opinion. I'm not getting paid for saying this or anything else. For me, because I'm a professional photographer and I shoot for magazines a lot, it's really important for me to make sure the colors in my photos are as accurate as possible. And like really with BenQ monitor, because the color accuracy is just amazing, I can achieve really great colors. And also I'm using SW271, so it's 27-inch monitor, and the resolution is just mind-blowing. So I can really zoom in, I can see small details, and that for me is really important, because when I edit photos on my laptop, it just doesn't compare. It's not really the same. So for me, good quality monitor is really important, and this monitor does everything I need from it. And one big advantage that I really like also is it can show different color profiles. So I can switch between different color profiles. So I can see my photo in sRGB or Adobe RGB, and I can compare what it looks like. So I know before I export my photos how they will look like when I post them on internet, or how they might look like when I print them. So the color accuracy of these monitors is just really nice. And I was just wondering, like, I know you said there are some professionals there today watching, like, what do you guys use to edit your photos? Do you edit your photos? Because I know many people nowadays, they just use phones. When you take photos for Instagram, why not? We edit photos on our phone or on our laptop. So how do you edit your photos? Just tell me. I want to show here. What do you use to edit your photos? Laptop. Wow, laptop is winning here. And cell phone too. Yeah, cell phones are really good nowadays. Yeah, but many of you use professional monitors too. Okay. Yeah, so this is the result, guys. Many cell phone users. I mean, I must say, like when I post photos on Instagram, I don't really always bother to, of course, like download photos on my computer and edit them. Like, yeah, so I use cell phone a lot, but for my professional photography, I must say I always use a monitor because also my monitor is calibrated, so really the color accuracy is just uncomparable. Okay. So now let's get to editing. So just quickly, I don't, it won't take too long. I just want to show like really because also like editing is really, I think editing is really important. Some people still argue like maybe it's cheating or you have to shoot everything perfectly when you shoot, but editing is just important because also editing is part of your style. So a lot of times you will see people always edit photos in a certain style, so that's kind of like how it defines their style. So I think learning to edit your photos and understanding your style is really important. So now I will show you, let me maybe, yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot. There's one important thing. BenQ is offering because we are hosted by BenQ, so they're offering a special discount code for their AQ color monitors. So there will be this QR code. One is for Czech Republic and one is for Europe. But don't worry, you don't have to take a picture in case you're interested, because you will get this QR code in follow-up emails. But it's just for today. There is this special discount on BenQ monitors. And now let's get to the editing part. So here we go. So this is the photo, how I shot it. I must say I quite intentionally underexposed the photo a little bit. I hope everyone can see my screen and my control panel. I'm editing my photos in Lightroom, that's important to say. I use Lightroom almost all the time because unless I need to do some advanced edits, Lightroom does everything I need. So I will also use it today to show you how to edit this photo. So this photo really, as I said before, it's slightly underexposed. So what I would do, I really go through the basic panel, but then I would start with exposure. So with this photo, I would increase the exposure a little bit. I don't really want to edit my photos. It's really like about my feelings. So I go back and forth, like, maybe I may increase the exposure now, but then I come back later and then decrease it again. So it's not a straightforward process. It's not like I use the slider and then never come back to it. So I will just play around and see what it does. But really it's underexposed, and you can also see it in the Instagram here because most of the data is in the dark part of the photo, so it's really it's because of the background, but it is slightly underexposed. So I'm increasing the exposure here first, and let's see, quite a lot, maybe like this. And then there is this basic panel, like you can see there are highlights, shadows, whites and blacks, and then you have the same here in the tone curve. The difference between these two panels is that I prefer the tone curve panel because I think I can adjust the light highlights and the dark parts in more detail, because when you, for example, adjust your shadows in the basic panel, it kind of like it brightens the photo everywhere, but it's like the darks and the shadows here in the tone curve, they really only like they aim certain areas of your photos, so it's more more accurate, more precise tuning of the photo. But let's start with this, with the basic panel. So I might increase the highlights also a little bit, because I think it's a little bit dull, the photo. Then we go to shadows, and because this is dark photo, it looks dark, but don't worry about it. It will change later. I actually decrease my shadows because I want to make a really dark photo, and I want to maybe not that much, maybe like this, minus 15, minus 18, something like that. And then blacks again. I think I will decrease blacks too, because I really want the photo to be super dark and like has quite high contrast, so like this. Then there is clarity. Like clarity, please be careful about clarity, because that's a bit clarity really makes photo looks a bit like grainy, and you should be careful. I'll show you what happens when I push the clarity really hard, you know, like suddenly all the texture is like increased, and so be careful with clarity. I usually do at clarity, but not too much, maybe like 10 or 15, like just a little bit. And to be honest, I don't often touch vibrance and saturation, because I much more prefer the HSL panel where I play with the specific colors. So I'm not going to add vibrance or saturation at the moment. And let's go down to the tone curve. So here you can see when I start playing with these sliders, the photos start really changing quite dramatically. So here I want to add light. So first, because it's still a little bit too dark, so I will increase the light like this, and also the darks now. So now I will increase the darks too. Yeah, maybe something like that. And I will decrease my shadows. Yeah, I think like this. Okay, I think the photo is still a little bit too dark, so I might increase the exposure tiny bit more, like maybe something like this. Okay, and now what I'm gonna do, really, I adjust my colors most of the time in the HSL panel. So because there is a green soup, so I will click on the green color, and now I will adjust the sliders here. So hue I think it's pretty clear. Hue tells you if the green is more like on a green side or on a yellow side. The saturation is how saturated the color is, and luminance basically says how bright the color is. So I want to brighten the soup a little bit more, because I want the background to be dark, but I want the soup to really like pop, to make the color a little bit brighter. So I will increase the luminance of the green, because now I'm really only playing with the green. And then also I will increase saturation of the green, just maybe something like this. And then I just wanted to make it a little bit more like bluish, the green. So also I will push the slider on the hue. So here, and I will show you halfway through. So this is, I'm not done yet, but this is like before and after. You can see already there is a huge difference, you know, so before and after. And now the photo is for me like a little bit too blue, because I mean, I could adjust the white balance here, of course, but I kind of want to keep it more cold, because it's a dark photo. But there's too much blue. So what I can do here, I can go to HSL panel and click blue, and I can decrease the saturation of the blue. And you can see if I go all the way down, the napkin is basically gray. So that's of course too much, but I just decrease the blue a little bit, maybe something like that. And then I will go to yellow. I mean, you may ask why yellow, because there's no yellow, but also green. You will see when I push the hue slider, you will see how it changes. See, so even when I'm like playing with yellow, the green is changing a lot. So now I want to make it a little bit more greenish, because I want the yellow to green to be really like fresh and bright. So I just like push the yellow a little bit, but also I decrease the saturation of the yellow. So something like that. Yeah. So here I think like just this part is maybe a little bit too bright. So what I would do, I would maybe push the highlights back a little bit. It's a little bit too bright. Yeah, and let's see before and after. So see, it didn't take much, and the photo is really different. I can show you next to each other, like, oops, like this. Come on, here. See, so you can see before and after, and so even like if the photo doesn't look like, so maybe you underexposed your photo, you did something wrong, there's so much you can fix in post-processing part. So, and it's really, I think it's really important, the editing part. So yeah, so I think that's it. Let's go back here, and yeah, I think that's all from me. And now we will have time for some questions, if you have questions. So I think I invite Vicente back.
Hi, Sharika. That was really fantastic. I think everyone really learned a lot, and it was super interesting to see everything from A to Z and all these details. It was really fantastic. I just think everyone is super hungry now after seeing all of the fantastic food. Everyone, the webinar is not over yet. Just as Sharika said, we're going to go into the Q&A section. I just want to say that the content portion of the webinar is now finished, and that tomorrow, you will be receiving tomorrow the recording of the webinar, as along with the discount codes that Sharika previously mentioned. We'll leave them here on the screen for you, but you'll be receiving them tomorrow as well. One is for the Czech Republic, which is valid for 1 week, and we have another one for all of Europe, which is valid for 1 month. And with that, we can now go into the Q&A section, and we already have a couple of questions lined up, and yeah, have fun.
Okay, guys, I'm back, so I hope you can still hear me, and I'm trying to read the questions, so let me see if there are any questions. Any questions? Oh, okay, there are questions. Okay, here we go. So let's start here. So Christina is asking, what lens do you usually use? That's a really good question. So I love using prime lenses, to be honest. So most of the time for food, I would either use 50 millimeters, 1.4. I'm shooting with Nikon, it's important to say maybe. I'm shooting with Nikon, and I'm using prime lenses. I have a zoom lens, but I really don't use my zoom lens too much when I'm shooting in a studio. So for food photography, I would be using either 50 millimeters or 100 millimeters macro lens. They're both 1.2 and 1.4. So I use the zoom lens when I really, especially when I'm shooting from an angle, when I don't want my perspective to distort. So, or really I'm shooting like tall drinks, that's where I would use my zoom lens, I mean like my macro lens by my 100 millimeters, or it would be 50 millimeters lens. Okay, next question. What are the continuous or strobe lights you're using? Oh, so Chitral is asking. So I was saying at the beginning that today, all the photos I was showing today were shot with daylight, with natural light. So I have strobes, but really for most of the time, if I don't have to, I don't really use strobes. So you can achieve all these photos, everything you saw today, you can shoot with natural light. So then, do you use tethering cable? Adina is asking. Yes, I do tethering. I do tether. So tethering is really, really useful, especially when you shoot for a client. Tethering just makes your life so much easier because you can see instantly what you shoot on your screen. So instead of checking your photo on a small screen on your camera, I can see my photo either on a monitor or on my laptop. So I use tethering a lot. It's really helpful because then, like, especially when I'm using a tripod, I use tripod a lot, and then I can tether, you know, I can take a photo, I can adjust, can see if there's anything wrong or any details, and I can change the setting, or I can change, you know, move the foot around, and then, yeah, so tethering is really, really useful, and I use it a lot. Then Beata is asking, do you use a full frame camera? Yes, I use Nikon D800, so that's a full frame camera. But honestly, I think you don't really have to use a full frame camera, especially when you're starting out. I always say the camera is not the most important element in photography. Really, first you have to learn to understand light, and also I always say that a lens is more important than a camera. So there will be some certain technical limitations that you can face at some point, but when you're starting out, just don't invest a lot of money in a good camera. Like, first understand the camera that you have, learn to understand light, learn composition, and then later on, when you really hit the limitation, like the camera is limiting you, then you maybe invest in a new camera. But I don't think you have to use full frame camera, especially when you're starting out. Then Yurai is asking, did you try tilt shift lenses? Are the tilt shift lenses good for food photography? I tried them. I don't really use them. Well, I don't use them. I tried them before, and yeah, they can be good at for specific kind of photography. Like, I had a client and they really wanted to achieve a really deep depth of field. They wanted to make a photo look sharp from the front to the end, and that is something that is really hard to achieve with the regular lenses. But honestly, it's a very specific style, and I don't need it. Like, I don't have clients who ask me to shoot in this way, and so I don't use tilt shift lenses. Hiba is asking, each time I focus on the plate, the non-focus part is blur. Oh, I'm not sure. Sorry, I have to read this again. Each time I focus on the plate, the non-focus part is blur. Okay, I think I understand this question. So basically, you're talking about depth of field. So depth of field, like the blurry part, is something we try to achieve in photos. It's something like, again, it's a fashion, it's a style to focus on one part of the photo and blur out the rest of the photo. And this is something we can change with aperture. So by changing your aperture, you change how much your photo is out of focus or in focus. So if you don't want to blur out the rest of the photo, try to change your aperture. So go like up your aperture, maybe go to aperture 10, 15, 20. Try to adjust your aperture and play with that. So the higher the number is, so when you're shooting, let's say you're shooting on aperture 1.4 or aperture 2.8, everything might appear really blurry, and it's really important where you focus. So if you don't like this effect, then try to up your aperture, you know, push it up to, try to go to 20 or whatever your camera allows you, or your lens allows you. Then Beata is asking, probably you have already mentioned it during your presentation. Okay, I cannot see the question here. You've probably already mentioned it during your presentation. Which aperture do you prefer? Okay, that's a good question. I don't think I really have a preference when it comes to aperture. It depends on the type of food I shoot, or what a client wants. So also aperture changes with a camera angle. So when, for example, when you're shooting top down, when we're shooting overhead, usually we tend to use wider aperture, so like a higher aperture number, because when you're shooting from overhead, you want everything to be sharp, you know, most of the time. Like you really try to achieve quite high depth, like you want everything sharp, so you would use high aperture number. Maybe you could use aperture 8, 10. But when shooting straight on, or when I'm shooting 45-degree, then I would go for lower numbers. I would go for aperture 3.5 or 4.5. It depends really. Also, it depends which lens I'm using. When I'm using my 50mm lens, then I would be using different aperture than with my macro lens. So I cannot really say. I don't really think I have like a favorite aperture. It really depends on the situation and on the photo that I'm shooting. Okay, so next question is what VD is asking, what monitor do you use? I think I said that I'm using BenQ SW271. It's a professional monitor for photographers, and it's 27-inch monitor, and I love it. So another question for Dentista. You mentioned we need to leave negative space on the picture, and how big part of the photo it should take. Oh, I don't think there is a rule for this. Again, it's you have to learn this, or you have to feel it, you know. There's no rule which would say you have to leave like 1/3 of the photo. So imagine you're shooting a burger, so you're shooting from straight on, and you can leave a lot of space above the burger, because especially if there's like a interesting background, so it's quite difficult to say how much space. It just like you need to look at the photo and feel if it looks balanced or not, and then adjust it, just play around it. Maybe try to take one photo and leave a little bit more space, and then take another one with less space and compare it. Which one do you prefer? It's really, again, like this is something really subjective. So one person may tell you, oh, I don't really like this, and another person may say, I love this. So try to just learn and play around, see what works. Another question, Marketa is asking, can you recommend some backdrops? What materials do you use? Okay, that's a really good question. I forgot to mention that. You can use, honestly, I created a lot of backdrops myself. So you can go to any DIY store. You can just buy some like a wooden board or like a chipboard, and then you can paint it. It's really super easy. You can just go and you can buy 1 by 1 meter, or like whichever size you want. When you go to DIY stores, they're usually happy to cut it for you to the size that you need, and then you just like paint it. There's so many tutorials on YouTube. You will find, if you just enter on YouTube DIY photography backdrops, then you will see. And so I created a lot of my backdrops myself, but also I use you can use papers work really well for backdrops, like different like wrapping papers or fabrics. I love fabrics like linen, And also I have few vinyl backdrops, so they're like you know, the one that you can just roll up. There's some I bought mine from London many years ago, and they just print different patterns on them. So vinyl works really well because they don't take up any space. You can just roll them up and you can just leave them in a corner of your room. So that's also really, really useful for food photography. So next question, Julia is asking, any advice on how to photograph a cookbook? That's a really good question. How to photograph a cookbook? I think Julia really knows how to photograph a cookbook, but it's really find your style. And just, I think the most important thing when you're photographing a cookbook is have a consistent style, and you know, find good light, and just let the food be a star, and also find a good food stylist. If you, that also really helps. So then there's another question from Denica. How long have you been shooting food? I think it's 12 years now. Yeah, I think, yeah, about 12 years. So then, and oh, this is a long question. AB is asking, the whole webinar was about the photos. I believe it might be really interesting to also talk about the business side of the food photography. For example, how to charge for the shoot, how to break it down, charge for the job, charge for individual photos, charge per hour, a renewable license, how to advertise and look for clients. Ooh, that's I mean, this is a topic on its own. We could have a whole webinar about this. So I don't know how to answer this question quickly. Where to start? It really depends on your market. Like, honestly, I started with food photography in the UK, in London, and then last year I moved back to Czech Republic, and I'm still learning about this market. So each market has its specifics, and there is a different a price level for each market. So I would say really just connect with other photographers in your area, and try to, there are like photographers, there is always a group, there is like a collective where maybe you can ask questions specific for your area, because I usually charge by day. I don't really charge by photos, but it depends on what kind of photography you do. I know people who shoot like products, they shoot by they charge by a photo, but for me, I usually have a day rate, because anyway, like, I don't really care how many photos I create. I just like spend a day on a photo shoot, so I charge by day. And but you really need to know what is the price level in your area, and it depends. Also, if you shoot for editorial or if you shoot commercial photos, the prices are different for each area of photography. So of course, like when you shoot products for a small business, for a small website, you cannot expect to charge the same price as when you shoot for a big advertising company. So this is really, really a thorough question, and it would take me a few hours. Probably we could talk about this for hours and for hours. But the license, yeah, license is really important too. Another topic on its own. Like, really, you should always have a agreement with your clients, and make sure you specify what license is included in your price, because a renewable license, yes or no, again, it depends on the job, on the client. So there's no specific answer for this, and it's how to advertise and look for clients. Well, there's so many ways. I think nowadays Instagram is a great medium, so you can just show off your work on Instagram or Facebook, and oftentimes clients will find you, or also you can reach out to clients. Oftentimes you can just send an email, find your client that you want to work for, and like send them an email, send them your portfolio, and you will see, like, I'm not saying they will always get back to you, but this is really, really deep topic, and we would have to spend hours talking about this. So I hope I just covered something here. So Agnieszka is asking, how did you get your first customers? That's a really nice question. I don't know. I think I was just super lucky. When I was starting with my food photography, I just locked myself at home for 1 year, and I was shooting every day. And that was 12 years ago, as I said. And honestly, the market was completely different than it is today. So I think the competition is much bigger nowadays than it was 12 years ago. So when I was starting out, there were not so many photographers, and I think it was much easier to look for clients. And actually, my first clients found me. I was just publishing my work online, and then somehow my first client contacted me. So I didn't really look for a client. So Dennis is asking, and the pancakes, did you use long picks to keep them in place? Actually, I didn't. Like, I managed to stack them without like having to use any picks or anything to hold them together. So they were pretty flat, and I was just like fiddling and trying to stack them on top of each other, and they just they complied and they stayed where they were. So no tricks here. Another question from Dennis. Do you use a timer in the camera to get the shot? Yes, especially like when I was shooting the pancakes, and sometimes, or if you're doing a pouring shot, and then yes, I use a timer. So I set a timer, and then because I you know, either you use you can use a wire shoot, sorry, like a wire to press the shutter, or I use a timer. So when I'm like doing a pouring shot and there's no one to do it for you, like especially when you're shooting at home and it's just you, then yeah, you set the camera on a timer, and then you start, you know, pouring or doing anything, and the camera goes on. Another question from Dennis. Wow, Dennis is asking many questions. What program do you use when you're tethering? A capture one? No, I'm using Lightroom. Lightroom on everything. So Lightroom also allows you to tether shoot. So it's Lightroom for me. Another question from Dennis. Oh, okay, there are many. What application? I already answered that. What application do you tether with? Not sure how to ask questions. Okay, I think I replied this one. And Denitsa says, great presentation, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Okay, next question. Okay. AB saying, thank you, Sharka, for responding. I didn't expect a thorough answer. Even this bit was fine. I was just hoping the webinar would also be a bit about business, not just the photos. So I wanted to point it out, maybe for the next time. Yeah, maybe we'll do another webinar. I think this was more really for beginners. So I know, like, even beginners want to look for, but this is like quite difficult topic. Not difficult, but it would take a lot of time to cover the pricing and everything. So maybe we can chat or something. You can send me a question to my Instagram, and then we can talk about this because it would take a lot of time to really talk about it now. Oh, Dennis. Okay, no more questions. You can ask question, Dennis. Thank you. I love your questions. Then another question is from Adriana. Great, thank you for sharing your knowledge. It was a pleasure watching you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us and for watching me today. Oh, Michelle, also, thank you. I really enjoyed that. I'm so happy, guys. Thank you so much. This is nice. Noemi is asking, beside Instagram, which platforms do you use for inspiration? As I mentioned before, I oftentimes, before photo shoots, I create boards on Pinterest, and I share them with my clients, and you can also find a lot of inspiration there. Or yeah, mostly it would be Instagram and Pinterest, but also books. I have a lot of cookbooks which I love, and yeah, so I would say that. Then Hiba is asking, Hiba is asking how to avoid blur effect. I think I mentioned that before. I think you need to watch your aperture. So I don't know, actually, do you mean blur effect like depth of field, or do you mean blur effect like the motion blur? Because there are two different blur effects. So either it can be a camera motion, like you can use a tripod to make sure that your camera doesn't move, doesn't shake at all. Or also, if you mean the depth of field effect, then that's something you adjust with your aperture. So if you don't want to have your background blurred out, that you would use higher aperture numbers. So you would go 10 and higher, depending on the kind of lens that you use. And then Yanis is asking, Janice, any favorite camera settings? Again, not really favorite camera settings. Again, it depends on what kind of food I'm shooting and which lens I'm using. So it's very specific. But yeah, in general, I would go, when I'm shooting 45 angle or straight on, I would go for more blurred out background. So maybe I would choose lower aperture numbers, so 2.8 or 3.5 or 5, and then when I'm shooting overhead, then I would again, I would up my aperture, so I would go much higher. It can be aperture 10, 12 or more. So depends which camera angle and what kind of food you're shooting. Another so Mia, and thank you for not having the typical Czech accent. Really? Okay, thank you. I don't really know, I have a weird accent. I think it's, yeah. So Christina is asking, what lens do you usually use? I think I already mentioned that. So normally I would use 50 millimeters or 100 millimeters lens. I also have 24-70, sorry, 24-70 millimeter lens, but I don't use that much. So much when I'm shooting at a studio. I use that when I'm traveling, so I use 24-70 a lot. But for when I'm shooting at a studio, I use prime lenses a lot, like most of the time. And another question, Tommaso is saying, thank you, super interesting. Oh, thank you, Tommaso. Thank you for joining us today. Mia says, just super webinar, thank you. Oh, you're so nice, guys. Thank you so much. Again, there's Mario asked about the lenses, so I think I answered that already. Oh, and Mario also asked, this is a good question, do you use a gray card or spider checker? I have a gray card. So yeah, I have a great card. I don't have it here now, but yeah, gray card is really good to set your white balance. So yeah, I do use a gray card. Then Mario is the dark side of power. So okay. And Claudia is saying, thank you. And Mario got hungry. I'm so happy, guys. Thank you so much. Then wow, there's so many questions. I'm trying to answer a few more. There is one interesting one. Adriana, I have 3 pastry shops and I would really love to see you do pastries. Do you think you will do another live video using pastries? I don't know yet. Yeah, maybe. Would be fun, either with the BenQ or we'll see. Then what else we have here? AB is asking, do you only do food photography or some other kinds as well? Well, I shoot food and travel, but thanks to the world pandemics, I've not been really able to travel much in the last year. So now it went down to food photography. But yeah, I don't really shoot weddings or anything else. So I love food, and food is my passion. It's my it's my life. So I love sticking with food and also travel. So any more questions? I hope I answer everything. Oh, here is Carmen is asking, but if we use aperture or more and shoot in natural light, we have to increase ISO, and then the photo may look grainy. Oh, this is a really good question. So when you're shooting, okay, so imagine like there is not enough light, yes? So we need to, you don't really like to avoid a grain from ISO, you have to use a tripod. So when you put your camera on a tripod, you don't really have to up your ISO because you can shoot on a long exposure time. So of course you cannot do this handheld, but if you have a tripod, then you can choose your aperture and then just like increase your exposure time without you know, changing your ISO. Then many thank you so much, guys. And Noemi is asking, what is your opinion on BenQ 2705Q monitor? I'm sorry because I don't know this one. I'm using SW271 and I love my monitor, but I don't really know other models. So that's would be question for, yeah, for someone else. Okay, there's Robin is asking, how do you spell the brand of monitor? So it's BenQ, so it's BenQ, really. And I think you will see that in a follow-up email. There will be name of the monitor and. Oh, this is an interesting question. Gaber is asking, is it true that a food stylist use non-edible or non-drinkable fruits or vegetables for photos, and what kind of objectives have you, which is the best for food photos? Oh, there are many questions. So is it true that, let's start with this one, is it true that food stylists use non-edible and non-drinkable fruits or vegetables? Honestly, the kind of photography that I shoot, like I shoot mostly for editorial, and I can say that everything we shoot, we eat. And that's my favorite part of the job. So at the end of the photo shoot, we would all eat everything that we took photos of. So it used to be true back in the days when photographers were shooting with film and with strobes, because it took a long time and the food had to stay looking fresh for a long time. But nowadays with digital photography, you don't really have to use non-edible food. So much. So no, like of course it still happens in advertising sometimes, but no, not so much anymore. And what kind of objective you have, which is the best? I don't understand this one, sorry. Do you have famous photographers or mentor who was inspiration to your photos? Okay, yeah, there are many photographers I love. Dita Isager, I don't know if you know Dita. She's from Denmark. She's one of my favorite photographers. And then I have many great friends, many great photographers. Like I love my friend Giulia Scarpaleggia from Italy. She's a really amazing photographer, and she shoots beautiful photos in her Italian home in Tuscany. And like what I love in her photos, like she can really convey the you know, when you look at her photos, you feel like you're in Italy. And so yeah, there's a lot of inspiration, and I constantly discover new photographers all the time. And but I really love Scandinavian photographers, like the Nordic, because I love the Nordic light, the really soft and like dreamy light in the from Scandinavian photographers. What else? Michelle is saying thank you so much. Thank you, Michelle, for joining today. And there's a question Robert is asking, do you use flash or just natural light? I use both, but most of the time when I can, I just use natural light. Okay, and Marketa is asking, have you ever used Canon? And do you think there are big differences between Canon and Nikon cameras when used for food photography? No, no to both. So I've never used Canon. I was actually thinking for a while to switching, but it's a horrible process because I would have to buy everything new, all my lenses and everything. So I don't really have any experience with Canon. And when it comes to differences, I think this is like a never-ending discussion between photographers, like which is better. Is it Canon or Nikon? But nowadays there's also Sony and Fujifilm. Really, I think there are slight differences when you're shooting RAW. I think Canon has like more vibrant like colors or something, but I think it's more about what you're used to. I've always been shooting with Nikon, and I'm really happy with Nikon. And I wouldn't say one is better than the other. It's always, I think it's always about the photographer and like how you edit your photos and how you work with light. So, and honestly, I really love, I also use Fujifilm, and I know people shooting with Sony. I really love Sony now. So in general, I don't really think that a brand of a camera is so important. Then Chitral is saying, thank you for a great presentation, helped me a lot. I'm super happy to hear this. Thank you so much for joining us today. And oh, Marketa is asking, thank you. Do you always use RAW format? Yes, I do. When I shoot for clients, I always shoot in RAW because it's an unprocessed format, and like it gives me much wider space for editing. So yeah, unless I shoot like when I go on holiday and I shoot photos for myself, yeah, I would shoot JPEG, but for clients, I always shoot RAW. Gaber is saying, thanks a lot, it was very good. Have a nice evening. Oh, you too. Have a nice evening. And thank you so much for joining today. And any more questions, guys? Which one I didn't answer? Thank you for your answers. There is one. AB, do you have a go-to food stylist, like a coworker, or do you look for them, or client have their own? To be honest, I usually work with same people, so there is a team, and I don't really have to look for food stylists. So most of the time, I work with same people. Or sometimes it can happen that the client has a food stylist, and they which they prefer to work with. And there's Tommaso is asking, oh, which mode do you prefer, manual or aperture or time priority? Oh, That's a really good question too. And honestly, most of the time I shoot with manual because I really need to control my settings. So sometimes I want to intentionally underexpose or overexpose photo, or so unless I'm shooting some quick action. So when I'm shooting outside or if I'm shooting travel, then I would shoot more in aperture mode. But when I'm in a studio and I have time and I use tripod, then I always shoot with manual. Okay, Tomáš is asking, Ahoj Šárko, did you think about making tutorials on YouTube, behind the scene, etc.? Oh my God, no, not really, not yet. Honestly, creating this webinar was a bit of nightmare for me because normally all my workshops are more like hands-on, and I prefer working with people directly. And I think I'm not really good with video, and I hate seeing myself on camera and on video. So not yet, but maybe I will change my mind one day. Okay, is there any more questions, guys? Can you answer? Thank you for answers and super presentation, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Thanks for coming today. Okay, I don't have a question, just want to thank you. Thank you so much. It's Barbara. Thank you. I think that's it. There are no more questions. I think I answered everything. Let me see a few more. Oh my God, the light, sorry, the light is getting dark here. And one more. Okay, I would like to ask if Sharka shoot with her camera only, or if she has always laptop connected and check the photos there. Okay, this is about tethered shooting. I think I answered that already, but let me repeat that. So when I shoot with clients, most of the time I shoot tethered because I think it's much faster, and it allows you to check your photos instantly. Of course, when I travel or when I shoot outside, then I shoot with my camera, but I love the shooting. Although sometimes it's a little bit of nightmare because a lot of the tethering cables tend to break down and disconnect. So sometimes it's a nightmare, but in general, it's really useful to shoot tethered. Okay, there's one more new question. Zbigniew, do you use phone for commercial sessions? No, never. No, I would love to. I would love to shoot, do a photo shoot with my phone, honestly, but I haven't done one yet. Always shoot with my camera. And then, AB, do you do your own workshops? I did. I used to do workshops before COVID. So yeah, but honestly, the world pandemic changed a lot of things. So maybe I'll be doing workshops again. It really depends how the situation will evolve. I don't know, but yeah, normally I do. When we can meet in person, when people can meet and get together, I love doing workshops. And then Carmen is saying a super webinar and presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really happy, guys, that you found this helpful. And Denitsa is saying, it was so nice of you to spend so much time answering our question. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, it looks like no more questions. So I think that's it. We spent a lot of time here, and and someone is saying I'm disappearing in the dark, which is true. So great. I think back to Vicente.
Sharka, thank you so much for being here with us today for this webinar, and it was really such a great learning experience that we're still getting comments of people saying thank you. I think it was a really fantastic experience, and learning to see your whole process. It's really very, very fascinating, and I think it was really a lot of value for everyone involved. And of course, thank you to all of you for coming, for being with us here today, and to also be on this learning experience, on this learning webinar. It really was like a master class, I think, in food photography with natural light, and super interesting. I'll say one more time, the recording will be sent to you tomorrow for all of this, so you don't have to worry about writing down all of the tips that Sharka gave. And of course, the discount codes that are on the screen right now will be sent to you guys again. But thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for all the questions. This is one of the parts that we love the most, is to be able to engage directly with you, to really be in contact, and of course to have someone like Sharka here to answer all these questions and to impart all her knowledge is such a fantastic pleasure. So with that, on behalf of BenQ, I'd say thank you once again to Sharka, and thank you once again to everyone for coming, and we'll see you at future events. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.